Good morning, sunshine. Welcome to my cheap art supply challenge where I completely fail at what I intended to do, but I also gained something else in the process. If you don't know, the cheap art supply challenge is a challenge in which you're supposed to buy cheap art supplies and then do your best to create a piece with them. This challenge is usually used to show people that you don't need expensive or high quality supplies to do quality art, and that it mostly comes down to the skill of the artist and practice. The cheap art supply challenge is a challenge that I've been wanting to do ever since I started making videos on YouTube. That is because I'm an extremely cheap person and I work with cheap supplies daily in my sketchbook and sometimes even in my more serious art piece. I love watching other people's cheap art supply challenges and I really wanted to make my own something really amazing. I wanted the art from my cheap art supply challenge to be better than my art in my other videos, and this failed for many reasons. Alright, so let's jump straight into today's piece. You might have seen a couple clips at the beginning from the day where I bought the supplies. My goal was to keep everything under $10 that day, so I chose my supplies with that in mind. I ended up buying a sketchbook for $3, a watercolor set for $1.50, a multicolored ballpoint pen for $1, and a small set of Crayola crayons for $2. That all came down to a total of $7.50 before taxes. So far so good. The trouble ended up happening when I decided to jump straight into a piece after swatching the colors quickly, and I didn't stop to test the materials. So today's piece failed mostly because I didn't know my materials, and it wasn't because they were cheap. The paper I used as a sketchbook, although it seemed very thick in texture at first, it can barely hold any water before it starts to crumble. This is something I can work around, but since I had no idea I would do that, it kind of messed up. There was also that plastic brush that came with the watercolor set. It has plastic bristles that are very square and don't hold any water, and they work just terrible with watercolors. This was an issue as soon as I started, and I quickly realized that this piece was not going to work, and I was going to need to familiarize myself with the supplies before I attempted something better. In retrospect, maybe I should have turned off my camera, practiced, tested the material some more, and then come back later to make a video. However, I didn't, and the reason why I didn't do that is also the reason why I'm posting this video today. The truth is that doing this piece was very fun. After I realized that this was not going to be a masterpiece, I started loosening up and experimenting with the supplies, and I kind of let them choose what to do next for me. It was really fun because I knew I wasn't using supplies that would cost me a lot to replace once I ran out, so there was a lot less pressure for me to come up with something great, and that really allowed me to enjoy the process itself more. I think that cheaper supplies are a great tool for learning to do art, and I also think that they're still useful even after you've made it as an artist, just because they don't cost a lot to replace, and that allows you to really mess around without any pressure. I know that I have trouble when I stare at a piece of watercolor paper and I feel like I need to do something amazing on it to justify spending that much on one sheet of paper. That's an anxiety that disappears when I use cheaper supplies, and I think that it is something that other artists could use as a way to take it a bit easier. If you were to measure my success at the cheap art supply challenge by the outcome, then I would say that I failed. However, if I was to measure my success by what I learned about the materials I was using and the enjoyment I got out of the piece, then I would say this is by far a success. Since I really liked doing this, I kept the sketchbook that I drew this piece in, and I would like to revisit the cheap art supply challenge. My plan for the next one goes as follows. I will keep this sketchbook. I will continue to use it exclusively with cheap art supplies until it's completed. Then when I have a page or a couple pages left, I'll try the cheap art supply challenge again, but taking in consideration all the learning that I've made throughout using the sketchbook with these supplies exclusively. I'm not giving myself a timeline for this because I'm doing this cheap art supply sketchbook for myself to have a place where I can take my art a bit less seriously. But yeah, I really hope that you liked watching me mess around with cheap art supplies today, and that you will keep in mind that today it's me that failed by not preparing enough, and it's not the materials. When the sketchbook is complete, I'll put a link down below to a cheap art supply sketchbook tour, as well as a revisited cheap art supply challenge, where I prove that it really isn't the materials, and that I really failed in this one. Alright, thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed my cheap art supply challenge, even if it did turn out a bit weird. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I post new videos every Friday and occasionally on Wednesday. Bye!